The Apple Cup is here. It's time for some keys to the game.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back in to another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's site editor with Athon Sports Inside the Huskies. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day, as we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Lars, we got a super fun show for the everydayers today. It is our pregame show. We love doing this. This is probably our favorite show of the week. We got our bold predictions and your always accurate score prediction coming up at the end of the show. We'll get into the defensive keys to the game, but we always start on the offensive side of the ball. And Lars, with that being said, what is your biggest offensive key to the game for the Huskies in the Apple Cup?
Well, I think it's about, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to say establishing the offense up front, kind of just establishing things up front, setting the tone, establishing the line of scrimmage. Because let's face it, is Wazoo the best defensive line they've faced? No. Ask Wazoo? Yes. So, sure. Okay, fine. And I think in a rivalry game more so than anything, especially when you are the superior team, just show it. Just lay it out early on in the game. And that's really what's kind of been the struggle when you look at, the play early on and why they've struggled, to get going on the first couple of drives. The offensive line isn't winning early. And it's not that those guys don't end up winning for the next three quarters, because they have. Like, Will's only been sacked twice in 2 games, I believe. I mean, don't count the trip and things like that. Just start fast. I'm not saying – because it's not really on one specific player. It's more on the collective unit, because that's not fair to single out any 1 or 2 players in that regard. So I'll just say, just set the tone early, kind of lay the foundation, and really start winning in the trenches up front, because that'll set everything else up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That was the number one thing I had here too, where Jedd likened their first quarter performance against Eastern Michigan to the Bad News Bears, which is really funny. We love that, but he's absolutely right. Where this is the kind of thing where I feel this showed up a lot in last year's Apple Cup too, where certainly very different talent levels on both teams, but the biggest thing was not just getting ahead early and just not going in cruise control, obviously, but setting a tone, establishing yourself as the better team, which is something that Washington can certainly do this Saturday at Lumen Field. And just the more that I look at it, the more I think, whether it be, whatever way they choose to attack, as they did last year when they won 44-6, and this is Arizona, this coaching staff, over Wazoo. Whatever way they choose to attack, whether that's, using a whole lot of Jonah Coleman, like we discussed earlier this week, whether it's going to the air a lot early and often, which we discussed earlier this week. Either approach is fine. Just do it effectively, because this defense is not stopping teams. 470 yards a game is 470 yards a game, whether it be Texas Tech or Portland State. 470 is 470. That's one of the 10 worst in college football right now. So however you feel that you want to attack this defense, do it efficiently and do it early. And then once you get a cushion, you can, if you want to get inventive, you want to feel some things out, that's the time to do it. But get ahead early and just don't – this isn't the term that I think I should use, but don't play with food. Just go.
In a way, it kind of – and this is like one of the half keys here. Get out of your own way.
Yeah.
What stopped you from scoring on the first drive against Weber State? Quentin Moore holding the penalty. Again, no shame to Quentin there. Kind of a ticky-tack. When you look back at that play, maybe not, right? Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But just those little details, because otherwise, like the line has been good. But I will say, when you talk about the changes that they made against Eastern Michigan, what changes preceded the offense getting going? It was Max McCree and Landon Hatchett. And then
I don't know if that's the only thing though. I think
I'm not saying that's the only thing, but I'm saying that the reason why I say that is maybe try that to start the game. Find out some, and I don't think you're going to do with Landon, but at left tackle, if you want to make a change, see if you can start differently there. That doesn't necessarily mean you couldn't bring in Swanee on the back end there, just like you've been bringing in Max. I'm just curious, why not try it? Because you clearly like what you got from him. Jedd clearly liked what he got from him.
I think that they're still ramping up Max, where I think we might see more 50-50 split this week. Where last week at the position, Solana got 35 snaps, Max got 22. I think that could be a lot more even in this game, where I think that maybe it'll be a drive-by-drive sort of thing, where I still think Solana is going to start, but I think there's going to be a much more consistent rotation of the position, which could end up being a good thing if, it brings the best out of both of them, or one of them just shows, hey, I'm playing a whole lot better right now. I deserve this job. Whatever it ends up being, that's fine. But I don't think that's the only thing that we can discuss here, though, Lars, because I think when it comes to another thing that I think is a really important key to the game is when we talk about Wazoo giving up 470 yards, Washington has only run, 58, 59 plays a week. They can certainly be more efficient. They can certainly run more plays than that. And that's one of the biggest things I want to see. It's pick up third downs. It's not just move the chains, but stay ahead of them and find ways to run more plays, because this offense has a lot of talent on it. And if you give it the opportunity to run 70, 75, 80 plays, not only you have a rested defensive line, and we've talked at length about how good that defensive line can be, all of a sudden you're putting up more points and just everything looks so much better if you can run even more than like 65 plays a game. If you're adding 6-7 more plays to that, fantastic.
Well, and you're also talking about in that regard, then you're scoring on some of those plays. And that's kind of what Jedd hit on, where if you find Giles on the check down in the open, that's probably 20 right there. If Jonah makes the right cut, that's another probably 5, 10, 15 yards right there. And so it's just a matter of all the pieces are there. And it's the same thing we'll say about the defense in the next segment. All the pieces are there on offense. And that's why it doesn't, I'm not necessarily saying, Max has to start for the offense to make this thing go. That's not what we're saying here. It's just, you have two guys at left tackle. One's clearly a veteran coming along, but still working his way back from a rather unique situation. And one's a redshirt freshman making his third career start. So you're going to have some natural switching at that position no matter what.
Yeah.
But for me, it's about, okay, none of that impacts Giles getting open and Will finding him. And I think it's almost my other key would be, it's not really a key. It's kind of just like week one of the ignition, Eastern Michigan, you cranked it. Wazoo turned the car on.
Okay.
Meaning, the offense has been clicking, right? Getting there.
Yeah. You're waiting for it to, I see what you're saying.
And so this should be the game where Will doesn't miss Giles open. Jonah knows how to make that cut. You don't have some of the procedural errors. You don't have some of the kind of week 1, week 2 freshman mistakes, or so to speak. There hasn't really been any mistakes. That sort of thing where it's, why are we doing this? Guys, we have 5, 6, 7 more plays. And then that leads into your point of, all you need is really 10, 11 more plays in the game. Because, by the way, you're talking about scoring 30 against Eastern Michigan. You're talking about scoring relatively in the same ballpark against Weber State. You can still get above 35, 40. It's just a matter of, can you pair that with also the defense getting off the field, making some of those early stops in the game, not giving up second and third down, conversions early in the game. But most of those came on second down, which is the problem, because their third down defense is fantastic.
I don't think you need to go that far with it, though, because you're right. Yeah, it's 30 and 35 points. But the one thing that both those games have in common was our number one key. Both those games, they didn't start fast, and they didn't score in the first quarter. So you eliminate that. Let's just add, a touchdown in each of those quarters, just one. All of a sudden, it's a whole different discussion. And that, we do love talking about the offense, but Steve Belichick's defense, there's some things that we're really excited about there too. Right after a message from our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors does everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. We've also got a message from our friends over at link. We've also got a message from our friends over at LinkedIn, because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has a tool to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free, because LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. You can hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. And that's why LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the hiring process easier. They even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Lars, defensively, is it containing John Mateer? Is it, trying to find him ways to make him uncomfortable? What's the number one key on the defensive side here?
I think, the number one key has got to be containing John Mateer, especially after what he did last week. Now, again, as I say that, he did only run, as we mentioned on Thursday's show, 2 for 55 against Portland State. So it's not like this is a true Lamar Jackson, and I know, I guess 55 would crescendo over your 45 minimum yardage requirement there. So it would check out. But the difference between 55 and 150 plus, is a lot different there. It's like a quarterback throwing for 120 and a quarterback throwing for 420. That's a significant difference there. But in that vein, even 1 or 2 or 3 of those runs that break off for 20-40, now you're talking about Wazoo extending drives. So I think absolutely the key for Washington, everything starts with, forcing John Mateer, as we said on Thursday's show, into being a pocket passing first quarterback who has to either hand the ball off or, try and just force it to thread through a needle. Because if you can shut down the run game, and especially John Mateer's legs, that is going to be the biggest key here.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And, we've talked about the different ways to do it. I think the number one way is going to be, playing with 3 safeties on the field. Maybe it, looks like a dime package, but with some of the different body types you have at safety, whether it be a Cam Broussard or Justin Harrington, some of these bigger, they look like they could play linebacker if they're a little bit heavier sort of guys. That could be a nice way to keep them contained. Somebody who can run sideline to sideline with him and won't let him escape is really nice. But the more I look at this, the more I just kind of watch the film on this matchup, the more I think it's going to be just finding ways to suffocate this passing attack, because I already don't think it's necessarily their biggest strength. But if I, know anything about Steve Belichick at this point, it's going to be exactly what we talked about all week, that he's going to find a way to take away Wazoo's biggest strength. And we know that's going to be running the ball. So what he's going to ask him to do is going to ask him to throw the ball into tight windows against man coverage. And as we've said about the secondary, Lars, it's big, it's long, it's athletic, it's talented. And so making the wide receivers uncomfortable, making John Mateer throw into tight windows, making him do some of these different things that he didn't do very well against Texas Tech. As we said, he threw for 115 yards and completed 9 of his 19 passes. So it wasn't necessarily a great passing performance because he didn't need to throw the ball. If you can find ways to make him throw the ball, he's going to be uncomfortable. And especially against this secondary, which is very, very talented, I think that it could end up being a long day for the Cougs if Steve Belichick's defense executes the way I believe it can.
Right. Well, and the other side of that is also not just containing John Mateer, but we're going to talk about the run game. Also, what's one thing Eastern Michigan and Weber State managed to do? There was a decent amount, now not a ton, right? But there was a decent amount of, significant gains that were broken off in the run game, especially in the first half. Wayshawn Parker, again, I'm not here to say greatest thing ever, but you can contain John Mateer, but if you get run over in the other regard, that's just as bad. Like, if John Mateer is not doing the damage, but Wayshawn Parker and Shellbaker are, that's equally not as good. But I think containing Mateer and forcing Wayshawn to be the only lead back, that is the best game plan, because then you know what you can do. You can start stacking the box and force those one-on-one matchups outside, knowing that, let's be real, Mateer doesn't have the greatest arm in the world. Like, he's good, fine, but I don't think, you don't look at him and think, man, that guy might cook our DBs here. Not to say that he can't every few plays here and there, but when you think about the run defense kind of just setting everything up. You can stop John Mateer, but you also have to limit Wayshawn Parker, which gets me to the linebackers. I think that is kind of going to be the position of key here. Because I know I said defensive line, getting sacks, doing all those sort of things. But for me, the linebackers in this, and you mentioned the that three potential safety look, or that Cam Broussard coming down as a third linebacker, that's going to be the real key here. Because even if John Mateer is not running it, you still want to have somebody in that second level making sure Parker or Schellenbaker aren't getting into the second and third level on a big run.
So I certainly agree with you there. I feel like this stat both proves your point, and at the same point is why I'm necessarily somewhat comfortable with Washington selling out to stop the run the way that I think it will. Lars, last week against Eastern Michigan, Washington blitzed 62.2% of the time. And on the season, they've blitzed on 53.2% of snaps, which, not necessarily shocking when I look at it. When, we watch the second, not the secondary, but the second level, and watch the way the linebackers move and step up and the way they're utilized. I don't necessarily think I'm surprised by that, but I think that kind of proves the point of what we've been talking about, is that they're going to crowd the box and they're going to play a whole bunch of guys close to the line of scrimmage, whether it be, they put a whole bunch of defensive linemen out there on the field, or it's, a three linebacker look, or they'll put a third safety out there, whatever it is, there are going to be a lot of guys crowding the box and close to the line of scrimmage. And as I don't think it's necessarily getting to the second and third level that concerns me. What concerns me more than that is them bouncing runs outside, where I feel like that's where we've seen the most problems. And if that happens, then yeah, for sure, I'm going to be concerned about who's going to be out there to make the tackle. Is it going to be those safeties? Is it going to be Ephesians Prysock, Thaddeus Dixon, whichever way the ball's going. But I think that's more what I'm going to keep an eye on in terms of the run game. It's just setting hard run fits, directing everything back inside, and not letting whoever the ball carriers escape outside of the box, outside of the pocket, really is the biggest thing. Where if it is Mateer, don't let him get outside the pocket. If it's either of those guys, keep everything in the A or the B gap, because you can win those battles. If they get outside and they're starting to get around the edge, then that's where you're going to have problems.
Yeah, but it also kind of feeds into everything why Washington's defense is so good, why we're so high on this defense is you're not worried about, if they get past the defensive line, if the edges aren't able to contain, they're SOL. No, it's okay. You still have Carson, Zoe, Cam, Thad. List goes on. A lot of guys that you're confident in space. I think it's one thing that we've seen this defense be better at than especially last year and the year before, tackling. Like, I know it's kind of funny when we asked Steve Belichick in spring, what's kind of the tenets that the defense needs to do? What do you have to do in this defense? Like, well, tackle. Like, yeah. I know you're kind of saying that as a football answer and as a coach speak answer and obviously stating the obvious, but sir, I don't know if you look back at tape the past couple of years. Defense didn't exactly always tackle. So,
something tells me he didn't. I'm just going to go out on a limb there.
No, you're not wrong. I guarantee you he did not look back. And I'm sure somebody did for him.
Sure.
But I would doubt that he spent a significant amount of time looking back at last year's defense. But I think that also kind of just bleeds into everything where it's almost kind of like it's great. You have a fresh start with some players that were here last year and, players that were here in 21 that felt the sting of losing the Apple Cup that year. So everything is kind of working in Washington's favor. And I mean, it's so frustrating, but it's also so funny and perfect at the same time. We're thinking, we wish Steve Belichick could give us a little bit more like, hey, what do you like about this guy? But at the same point, like, if you're going to get these kind of results, I don't think he cares. Like, it's like, I think he had the greatest response ever when he had somebody asked him on Tuesday's press conference, does this serve as a motivator, X, Y, and Z? And he's like, yeah, that doesn't help us this Saturday. Right. I was like, that's fair. You could do all these great things, but if you don't execute and you don't communicate and you don't do all these things, and it's a true defensive football setup. It's like, hey, we're football guys. This is what we do. We don't give you a lot, but we make you happy a lot on Saturdays. And I think that's exactly going to be the case this Saturday.
And that's the whole thing where, we spent a lot of time on yesterday's show talking about, can his defense hold Wazoo without a touchdown? Can they go 3 straight weeks without allowing a touchdown? And it comes back to exactly that, where that was exactly the question that was asked was, that hasn't happened here in a while. Do you take pride in that? He goes, I don't really care because it doesn't happen in the next game. Like, it's not going to help us going forward, which I respect that answer. I love that answer. But that's just I feel that he has validated a lot of things we kind of talked about in regards to what he can be over the course of the offseason. Because the more we watch this defense play out, the more it's been exactly what we expected, where the scheme is really, really solid. The players have executed it very well. It's simple for them to just know exactly what they're supposed to do on every single play. And then on top of that, it's been really great with adjustments. And, especially with the new tablets on the sideline, I'm sure that's helped things a lot faster. But on top of that, too, it's Steve Belichick is one of the best defensive minds regardless of level of football, NFL, college, high school, whatever it is. He is probably, just in terms of who he is, top 10, top 15, just defensive mind in this sport. So having that guy on the sideline, you cannot understate that. You really can't. And Lars, it's time to have some fun. Let's get into our bold predictions. Right after message from our friends over at Factor, because you can fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals thanks to a menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, my personal favorite, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. And with 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from each week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. You can make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. You can stay fueled with easy, nutritious options, and you can keep kitchen time to a minimum, which is always wonderful for me because Factor meals are ready in just 2 minutes. There's no shopping, no prepping, no cooking or cleaning up, which are always wonderful. And you can enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. You can just choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. You can head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Lars, you're not going to believe this. I remember whose turn it is, and it's your turn to go first this week.
It is. Well, so I was actually thinking about that when the offensive key is like, hey, what is my offensive game? Like, hey, did you just already remember that I was going first this week? But yeah, no.
Shockingly enough, I did.
Proud of you. No, so that's a good one. I'm thinking there's so many different ways we can go. I'm gonna say, let me take a Jonah Coleman one because I feel like I haven't done that one recently. I'm gonna give you the final stat line of Jonah Coleman.
Oh, okay. All right.
17 carries, 135 yards.
Okay.
2 touchdowns.
All right. I like that. Give me a little more there. I want to do some math for you.
Okay, so the reason why I say that, I mean, thinking Jonah gets another 100-yard game, 3 more than he ever had at Arizona. Not surprising there. 17, you're still keeping it under 20 because I don't think he'll ever get above 20, just personally, because you have Cam Davis, you got Adam Mohammed. There's going to be a chance. There's going to be a point in this game where it's just the floodgates are going to open. And I think it's going to come either in the second or third quarter. And as we talked about in the offensive keys, Thursday show, who's the most fun guy to watch? It's Jonah. And that's no slight to Will. That's no slight to Denzel. That's no slight to all those guys. But I think, if you're trying to send a message for the last time you lost at home, air quotes being home here, because, again, you played there last year with the 21 game, I just think, if anybody's going to send a message, it's going to be Jonah, at least on offense.
Sure. So I wanted to just do some math on what that average yards per carry would be for Jonah. That would be 7.94, which is down almost actually over a half yard from his season average of 8.6. So I just wanted to check on that. I like where you're going with that. I respect that.
Well, I was going to say, at least it checks out because it's still, again, above 6. And I think, right. By the way, we 3 years ago, we were talking about 3 yards in a cloud of dust under JL, and now we got 10 yards in a cloud of dust under Jonah Coleman and Jedd Fisch.
10 yards and he's gone half the time, or he's running somebody over. So I like where you're going there. I want to go with a Will Rogers stat line. I think that he's going to go above 80% completion again this week. He went 21 or 26 last week. This is going to be his first 300-yard game. I think he's going to get over 300 yards, and I think he's going to go let's go 3 touchdowns this week, where I just am not moved by this Wazoo defense. Truly, I'm not. Where I know I've said it 5 times already on the show now. 470 yards a game. It's 124 in the nation. Bad. Not great. I know that's just, the hard hitting football analysis that our everydayers subscribe to this show for. Bad. So I love this receiving core. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just wanted to say that I love this receiving core and think that it'll be just far and away better than Wazoo's secondary.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. No, you're not like that's it's bad. There's literally nothing more that you can say. It's not, you don't need to go into the hard hitting analysis to figure out why this isn't working. It's just, you look at 2 simple stats and it's, okay, that checks out. Yeah. Oh, that checks out. Okay. Yeah. Like, and it's also the fact that it's Portland State and Texas Tech. So let's keep moving here, because that was pretty easy. Speaking of the defense though, let me say this. Mateer has turned the ball over how many times? Did he have a turnover?
Threw an interception last week.
Okay, so he doesn't have any. I'm going to say Washington forces, put the over under at 2.5 turnovers, and I'm going to take the over.
All right.
I'm going to try this one more time. And if it doesn't work this week, I am not doing another turnover over under for the rest of the season. But I have a hunch.
I respect this.
Given the fumble last week, given some of the other stuff, the momentum working, I just have a hunch. I can see somebody getting a pick, somebody getting a fumble. The question becomes then, are we counting a 4th down stop as an extra turnover?
No.
We might split those hairs on Monday's show, but either way,
I'm telling you right now, the answer is no.
You're not wrong. But either way, I think there'll be at least 2 turnovers. I'm going to set the over under 2.5 and give you the over.
I like where you're going there. I've got one more on the offensive side of the ball here. I am just stealing this verbatim from Alex Katzen, but I'm giving him credit. Shout out to our good buddy Alex, who writes with me over at Huskies Wire. He wrote something earlier this week over on Huskies Wire talking about how week 1, Giles Jackson was the leading receiver in terms of yardage. Last week, it was Jeremiah Hunter. This week, it has to be Denzel Boston, or that's just the way the patterns have worked out. So I'm taking that. Give me Denzel. I think that he becomes Washington's first 100-yard receiver this week.
Can we just talk about the crime that Giles hasn't been the leading receiver? He had put a 2 yards shy of the opener and then should have had 100 last week, if not for a penalty being called back. Anyway, but beside the point, you're absolutely right. I think Denzel is kind of due for that 100-yard guy, and who better than an in-state guy against Wazoo? Didn't ever really look at Wazoo in general anyways, but just, traditional sort of thing there. I'm going to go back to the offense because I'm going to leave you with the defensive. I'm assuming you have at least one defensive.
I've got some stuff cooking up here.
I was going to say, I think you got one at least in the chamber. So I am going to go back to another old well, and I am going to say that Adam Mohammed gets his first touchdown at the Husky.
I like this.
It was almost there before. I don't really know. I mean, he only had 2 carries. So again, I'm not faulting him for that, but this seems like kind of a perfect game, especially, at Lumen. Fisch can say, hey, your first touchdown in college was in an NFL stadium. There's so many different layers to it that is going to be a selling point. And by the way, I don't blame Fisch at all for that. I don't. No, do what you got to do. Do what you got to do, especially with the background and resume that you have. If it was somebody else, I'd say please stop. But he's actually got the cojones to do it. So give me Adam Muhammad's first touchdown run of that season.
I like that. So the one I'm going to go with here, I feel like I'm cheating a little bit just because of the way it might end up working out in terms of the way college and NFL differs in terms of, this is a sack. This is a rush for -2 yards from the quarterback. Give me 4+ sacks this week from Washington's defensive line, where last week we saw 7. Very possible. We saw 7 last week, and I'm not going to put any numbers on it where, Zach was obviously fantastic last week with Zach Derby getting 2.5 sacks. I fully expect this pass rush to be just as ferocious and tenacious as it was last week. So whoever it might be, Deshaun Lynch, Jaden Wayne, whoever it is that's going to be getting after the quarterback this week. I know Lance Holtzclaw got in there and got a sack, where I feel that John Mateer is going to be under a lot of pressure. And if the pass rush can do a good job of keeping him in the pocket and containing him, that 4+ sacks seems very, very viable. And Lars, it's about that time. Your Apple Cup always accurate score prediction. What do you got for us?
So we're at least at 35, have to be. Obviously Washington wins the game. No real
What? No way.
No real surprise there. But give me, this is Washington's first 40 burger. Give me Washington 45. Washington State 13.
Oh, so you're just doing the opposite of the Jim Moore.
Well, actually, no. The reason I'm a defender is that I haven't listened to what Jim said, and no offense to Jim. Well, either way, no, I haven't listened to what Jim said. But the reason why I said that is because you said 3 touchdowns for Will. I said 2 for Jonah.
I like the math. And one for Adam.
One, and I'm getting the one for Adam, and then also Wazoo does get a touchdown against UW, so that streak does end. But it's only 1, and you get 2 field goals, and it's a wrap and a blowout. Like, I think that will allow me to ask Steve, hey, are you disappointed to lose the touchdown streak? And he'll say, no, we got the win. Stop asking if I'm disappointed. I'm not disappointed. That's why we love Steve. Steve had a great response for that. So, I don't know what Jim predicted, but that's my score prediction.
Lars, I love everything you got going on there. And with that being said, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the everydayers tuning in. We really do appreciate your support. And thank you so much for making Locked On Huskies your first listen of the day. Now go check out the Locked On College Football podcast from NIL deals, never-ending conference realignment rumors. Our guy, Spencer McLaughlin, gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And with that being said, please make sure you subscribe to Locked On Huskies wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere, updating the channel through content every single day. So make sure you click that like button, click the little bell so you never miss when we post a new video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them right down below in the comment section. And if you're audio only, please feel free to leave us a 5-star review, as it does help us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you after the game.